All told, black market oil feeds an estimated $1 million a day into the Islamic State's coffers.
ISIS control of oil is an essential aspect of their financing and their logistical.
ISIS stands for the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. It has taken control of areas of land stretching from northern Syria to central Iraq. ISIS is a radical, anti-Western militant group who uses brutal and effective tactics to control seized territory in order to establish an independent Islamic State.
One of ISIS's major sources of income is oil. ISIS and other extremist groups initially started taking control over oil assets in Syria since 2011. ISIS then expanded its territory and gained control of most key Syrian oil assets. But it didn't have the expertise or equipment to manage oil fields at full capacity. Therefore, it controlled 60% of Syria's oil production, which would be 200,000 barrels a day. However, ISIS was only producing around 50,000 barrels a day. In addition, in Iraq, ISIS controlled the field capacity of 80,000 barrels a day, but was only producing 40,000, which then declined after the U.S. airstrikes. Despite the U.S.'s efforts to stop ISIS's operations, ISIS still managed to make around $3 million a day through illegal oil trade. International restrictions prevented ISIS from selling oil legally, so they resorted to selling oil on the black market, utilizing old smuggling routes established back in the 1990s. They sell oil to agents at a quarter of the market price, who then sell it to others for profit. And in addition, they don't mind selling the oil to enemies for the sake of the expansion of the Islamic State, which is their main goal.
ISIS's main oil-producing region is in Syria's eastern Deir ez-Zor province. It produces 34,000 to 40,000 barrels a day. This production has decreased due to Russian airstrikes against oil facilities. Also controls the Kayara field near Mosul in northern Iraq that produces about 8,000 barrels a day. Prices vary depending on quality. ISIS doesn't only rely on exports. In addition, it depends on the profits from controlled markets closer to themselves, such as rebel-held territories in northern Syria, eastern territories controlled by Syrian Kurdish militia, and in its own self-proclaimed state. It sells most crude oil to third parties, otherwise known as independent traders. Syrian and Iraqi buyers used to go directly to fields to collect oil. However, this made an easy target for airstrikes. Now buyers are told exactly what time to come pick up their oil to avoid huge masses of trucks, making an easy target. ISIS managed to maintain its production, but has struggled to maintain its profit margins. To gain back profits, ISIS has been offering what they call a trader's license, which allows them to jump to the head of the line and get thousands of barrels of oil at once, as long as they can pay the entire cost up front.
ISIS's oil revenue has slowed down fairly significantly due to the constant airstrikes. Its oil infrastructure isn't easy to hide, therefore the U.S. has succeeded in bombing ISIS territory. In addition, it can't sell all it produces because it is needed for electricity. In 2015 of April, the monthly revenue had fallen by 30%, so ISIS was forced to cut its fighter salaries in half and to ration medical supplies. ISIS also had to give up 22% of its territory to the Kurdish. Therefore, its population decreased from 9 to 6 million people, and also consequently, its tax revenue decreased by 23%. Its daily production of oil went from 33,000 to 22,000 barrels a day. In May of 2015, ISIS was making $2.4 billion, which was a $500 million drop in revenue from the previous year.
One of the consequences of ISIS's decline in its oil industry is an increase in taxes, as shown previously. In addition, ISIS has turned to bank looting and kidnapping as other sources of income. When ISIS gains new land, it claims their banks as well. In 2014, the Islamic State stole up to $1 billion from banks, making it the wealthiest terrorist group in the world.
The threat ISIS holds on the global economy is that the Middle East controls 60% of oil reserves. The US and the other countries fear ISIS's ability to gain control of a significant percent of the oil fields, and therefore be able to increase its power. OPEC, which stands for the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, coordinates the policies of the member oil-producing nations. OPEC holds meetings where they discuss the setting of oil production, including the prices it is to be sold at. ISIS is not a part of the OPEC nations, therefore it is not affected by OPEC's regulations and has the power to set its own oil production. If ISIS continues to produce oil and therefore increase the global production, then the prices will be forced down. So in order to regain equilibrium, OPEC will decrease the set production of the oil. From this point, the cycle of attempting to maintain the equilibrium price of oil will continue unless airstrikes are successful. For then, ISIS will be unable to increase oil production and the prices of oil will vary.
Hi, now we're going to go interview people on how their opinions of we as a nation can solve this economic problem. Let's go!
Do you feel that the oil industry of ISIS is a threat to our nation's economy?
I don't think so. I don't know how big the oil industry that ISIS controls is as it relates to the world oil. I think it's a danger. I don't think it's a threat necessarily to our oil industry or our economy, but I think it's a danger because that's how they fund their terrorism. So I think it needs to be stopped ASAP.
Do you think that airstrikes on oil fields is an effective approach to this economic issue?
No, because I think they won't be able to get rid of all the oil places that are in the country.
Do you know where ISIS gets its financing from?
No, I don't.
So you're not aware that one of ISIS's major source of income is from their oil industry?
I was not aware of that, but I'm glad that I'm hearing that from you.
They've actually conquered many oil refineries in both Syria and Iraq, and it has the potential of affecting the global economy on a larger scale if they get too much power. So do you have any opinions on that?
Well, I think that we should all think about how we can stop that and stop ISIS and stop their funding. But I did not know that that's where they were getting their funding from. But thank you.
Thank you.